the harder I work, it goes to someone else's profit. And so, with that, let's get to, we're not going to worry about this. Yeah, my Invisible Hand comics. I like this one. If you know anything about this great movie called Invasion of the Body Snatchers, it's pretty funny. But this might be my favorite. If you can't read it there it is again. The invisible hand of the marketplace giving us the finger. Okay, so, and what the finger is war number 1. All right. No. 10. Laissez-faire economics. And what's going to come out of this is economic policy for the United States. Now we're talking about where votes, where people, their representatives have a real measure. There's no such thing as a free market that operates in a vacuum. And the invisible hand operates like gravity controlling the market. Government and people have immense power over the market. They control it. So, laissez-faire economics is the term they would start giving to economic policy. What it meant is hands-off. Government will not touch competition. And they kept saying, we'll let the market decide. We won't touch it. But because of economies of scale, if the government does not do anything about competition, by definition, who are they favoring? Yeah, which means the big. Because big have a competitive advantage. And the big will squash the small, which has happened. You see these waves of mergers and conglomerations where companies get bigger and bigger until they become a monopoly or what we have today. Almost everything is like a monopoly called an oligopoly. Well, we'll get to that. It's a holding company. All those things are coming. And things we get used to today are all going to be developments of this time. And next, yeah, we're going to be hands-off, but it's going to be massive government aid for business. Massive. And it's going to include such things as, we'll talk more about this, so because you probably don't know what the gold standard is, or what it really is. But it's a very complex way to control money supply. Or things like high tariffs or breaking unions so workers get lower wages. All those things government will do. We'll talk more about that. But one of the biggies in this era is immigration. Having wide open immigration. This map shows the percent of immigrants in these areas of the country by 1860. Isn't that remarkable? And where did the immigrants go? What part of the country? Why?
Specifically.
For what? Well, partially because they were lied to and thought this was a dark spot. But here, yeah, jobs. That's where the jobs are. And yeah, they went to Sweden. Norway was in part of Sweden. And they told them, they recruited immigrants from there thinking they told them the weather was really nice in Minnesota. And they wanted people who are more used to cold weather. There's a reason why there's a bunch of Norsemen in Minnesota. But that's where the jobs are. Immigration in the short run, it does lower wages, but in the long run, it increases profits. It increases the marketplace. It increases wages. Immigrants increase wages in the long run, a lot, because you have a bigger market. You sell more. There's more innovation. Immigrants provide a lot of immigration, or a lot of innovation. In so many different areas, but the big one's food. Because I think about food a lot. I'm on a 42,000 calorie a day diet. And so I'm trying to get to 380 by tomorrow. So with that, immigration though. Another big thing was for government aid, and this is going to be debated for 50 years. Henry Clay, one of the war hawks, he would come up with, or his program he would call the American system. And the American system would be massive government aid for business in the forms of protecting tariffs. What's the bus again? And what's internal improvements? Yeah, roads. Yeah, the big one's going to be railroads. Federal government money, direct and indirect subsidies for companies to do all this stuff. Massive government aid. This is going to be debated and debated after the Civil War. It's what the U.S. will do. And now we just are used to it. I mean, we have all, the road network might not be as good today as it was when I was your age, but it's still an amazingly effective road network, and we just accept it. We have real problem with bridges right now. I don't know if you know that. Yeah. A real problem with bridges. Yeah, think so? Yeah. Internal. Yeah, they got to do a lot of improvement and a few other things, and railroads and a few things. Well, it doesn't happen without federal money. And this, in many ways, is the basis of conservative economics of today. And I've already told you one other thing that's about conservative economics. What was it? Who had, say it again, Hamiltonian economics. Help the very wealthy, help very big business, gear government policy towards them with the ideas they'll produce. They'll manufacture goods. Or have gold-plated toilet seats. I don't know. Could be either one. There's some, we'll get to this. Now, we're not going to go through all the details of conservative economics, as they call it, the 20th century through today, but to now. But we're going to go through it a lot more when we get to the 1920s and 1930s, because we can see a direct relationship. So I'm just kind of introducing and building onto it. But since we're talking about this, what is President Trump and his party, the Republicans, who control Congress? What are they? Yeah, they're very conservative economically. And they might disagree on a lot of things, but this is what they do agree with. And so they're proposing a tax cut about $2 trillion over 10 years, and 80% of it will go to whom? The top 1%. That is their economic policy. Yeah, most people, their taxes will either stay the same or go up a little bit. Mine would go up under the proposal. Doesn't mean it'll happen, because we're right now on the outline stage because they're kind of hiding it from people. But that's laissez-faire economics, and the words mean something. Words mean something. Laissez-faire, laissez-faire. I know this is hands-off. Is it hands-off? Is this pretty big government intervention? And I'm only just giving you the elements of it, but they can say it is. It's laissez-faire. It's laissez-faire. No, we're Americans. Laissez-faire. Words matter. And how you say something, you can frame it like propaganda. You can get people to think one thing, but you really mean something else. If you ever see a law in Congress and it has the word reform in it, what should you do? Hide your wallet. And I'll give you a great example I saw from last year. There was a poll taken when after President Trump was elected, and they were going to they attempt to repeal Obamacare. And they had a poll there, and the poll was about 45% of the population did not, or only about 45% of the population approved of Obamacare. That's about 60%, but then about 45%. And they asked them, but what's your feeling towards the Affordable Care Act? And over 75%, depending on the poll, 75 to 85% were all for the Affordable Care Act. The exact same thing. And so people get, okay, they get a word and they go, oh, that's bad because I don't like that word. But it's the same thing. You name it something else, people change. It's part of your responsibility to look into that and know something. I can, of course, tell you what to think. I'm available for a small fee. But what we have after 1815, a new economy. Yes?
How small?
It slides. Usually involves 8 to 9 pound Kit Kats. Yes. I'm at $47,000 a day. Don't forget. Now I put down before 1815. It's not like January 1st, 1815. All of a sudden we have a whole new world. Everything has changed. It's going to take a long time, and we're still going through the adjustments from the Industrial Revolution. But we're talking about a family. This unit. Now let's get to what really matters. How people made a living. How they got food, how they supplied the goods they need for survival. Here is, I better turn the light off because this picture is trying to show you a home, family making goods, and families were producers. They made everything, and in manufacturing, they're none by people. So this is trying to show how difficult this job would be. They're making shirts for an order. Because look at the eyes. Ah! So you could have the mechanical reaper chasing her. That's a costume. Like, ah. Creative, aren't I? People were relatively self-sufficient. Now, of course, we can see some flaws with that. You know, if you don't have a lot to sustain yourself and you're self-sufficient, but you're relying upon yourself. And everybody in that is important. Everybody in that picture. Because look at their eyes. They got to be important. The system for manufacturing was called the putting out system at this time. You might have heard the book called the cottage industry. Well, they didn't call it cottage industry in 1820 or 1790. Merchants would put out orders to households, to individual skilled craftsmen and families to do things like sew clothing or whatever it might be. So manufacturing would be done at home. That's why it's cottage industry. But it's the putting out of orders. And so the key thing about that is, yeah, the merchant's putting out orders, but they're the boss. And you look at what they're making. Every person is making that in that family. So I assume it's the husband and wife and children. They make it so they're all look very, 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 very old. And these are either maybe skilled craftsmen, even if they're not skilled, they are independent. They are independent. When do they go to work? When do they go to work? That's a very Industrial Revolution thing, isn't it? When do they work? Yeah. How long? And they don't want to work that day? What do? So they don't have a boss, per se.
But do they still have the deadline?
Maybe. But what are you going to do if they don't meet it?
Oh well.
And actually, that'd be one of the big impetus for the Industrial Revolution and for factories. Because merchants thought we didn't have control over. We want slaves to tell what to do. Not these people who have crazy things like free will. I know it's evil. And pay, why not get basic? That's pay basis on. Let me change that.
Which should it be?
This is being based.
Basis.
Pay basic. I was just testing you. That's just I like that. So pay based upon skill and hard work. How hard you work. And if you don't want to do it that day, you don't do it. And if you're a skilled artisan, you can demand a higher pay. And look about once more, I've said it a couple times, but I can't emphasize this enough. Every single person in this is important. The family can't make it unless they all work. Economically, they're all powerful. They all have importance. Without them, it'd be difficult to survive. Male or female, old or young, sure, we might have different quantities, but all important. Everything changes after the Industrial Revolution. After 1815, you begin the consumer economy. And if there's a consumer economy, that means you're out there buying goods, more and more goods and necessities. And how do you buy them? You need money. Isn't that a lot different now? I was once relatively self-sufficient. Now I have to have money from someplace to buy it. Well, these some things for a medium of exchange, which is all money is. And it's not putting out orders. It's not under one roof. It's capital. It requires investment. You think about this for a second. You're not working, you're going to work. That's a big change. I go to someplace else because they have the capital. I can't do it alone. I have to go someplace else. And there were elements of this before the Industrial Revolution, but it was still like, that was rare or weird. Not now. Yeah, everyone has to work here. That's a big building. And it's no longer independent artisans. It's the merchant capital. And that means that you, as a worker, are dependent upon them for a place to work. I can't emphasize that enough. You are dependent upon them to find a job. And no longer is it based upon skill. What is it based upon? Therefore, the wage system, market. Think about what a big deal this is now. And so if you've got to go there to work, almost everybody does. Sure, there's a chance you become a capitalist, but do the math. You can only have so many. And you must go there to work. What if they have no work? But what if everybody doesn't have work? You starve. When you are relatively self-sufficient, you don't have to worry about such things. I mean, there's a perpetual issue of drought and not having food, but now every single person in this room, all of you, are dependent upon the market functioning. And if there's a bust, this could crush every one of you. There might not be a place for you to work or your parents to work. And what happens? And it's not like all of a sudden I can go to Texas and work. It doesn't work that way. This is a big shift. I'm no longer dependent on myself. I'm dependent on something that I might have no control at all, the market, for my survival. The Great Depression, that wouldn't have happened without the Industrial Revolution. Those things didn't happen before this. Or the crash you lived through in 2008 didn't exist. Now, we could say we get a lot of benefits from it. Yes and no. But what a huge shift in expectations of life. This is massive. So, let's get to reactions. Because our world is shifting fast. Think about throwing upside down every single thing you knew about life, everything you had expectations about how you made a living, how you survived, even expectations about interpersonal relationships, families, even faith. Everything is thrown upside down. And this is a temperance movement came out of the Industrial Revolution. And here is the drunkard's progress. And this is a pretty gruesome one. It starts with a glass of wine with dinner. And then pretty soon, you're out here, and then the downward slide. Can you see it until suicide? And who's left behind? Remember, you're consumers now. You have a little bit of money. Bring home a paycheck. And if let's be the norm here, even though it could happen both ways, but the father drank it all, what happens to the family? And so, remember I told you how much they drank so much more before the Industrial Revolution? I talked about they drank about 10 times more during the Revolutionary War. Different world. So, first big thing, this changing family. The whole family, not only who was in the family, the power structure of the family, everything was turned upside down for almost everybody. And the biggest change, the most noticeable, the one that affects us to this day so much, would be that women lost economic power. In fact, lost almost all their economic power. Before the Industrial Revolution, women were equal to men in economic power. They were both necessary for the survival of the family. They could not have functioned. They had important jobs and duties to do for survival. After the Industrial Revolution, more and more families, the husband went off to work, and now what? Yes?
Look at the tiny dogs.
Yeah,
Same size.
I know. Everyone had big heads back. So, with that, they go off, work. What does the wife do? What purpose do they have? What good are they? No, I'm not kidding. Seriously, before, economically important. Now, radically different. And once again, it's not overnight. They go off to a different world. Wife stays at home. Are they needed economically anymore? No. For most women, more and more, it's going to be no. Or not as much. What do they do now? Where do you think that comes from? It wasn't like that before. Sure, women had a lot of responsibility caring for children, but that was part of it because we had this economic role we all had to do for the survival of the family. Now it's different. What matters for the survival of the family is that paycheck during the wage system. How do you convince women to accept this? What role? You got to figure out a way to do it. What do they call it? That was one of your short ID choices. Where do you think that comes from? The cult of domesticity is the reaction to the Industrial Revolution. And you notice they use the word cult. We're going to change their beliefs and convince people it's for their own good. Telling women, this is what you're supposed to be and you'll be happy. And what is your only job? In fact, your only avenue for success is to do what? They call it domesticity. They started calling it too. Middle-class values. The idea being your husband made enough money for the family to survive. What do you got to do?
Married.
You've got to get married. And if a woman is not married, she's a failure. Let's be clear about it. There's something wrong with her. What else? Have children and care for them. Urgent. And I don't mean just care for them like, throw some, food at them. We have to get down. The moral and ethical training of the children. We're going to teach them morals. That will be the role of women. While the men go off to this exciting world of business, and they would use these terms, especially the women's rights movement. They go off to like a different world, empirical, involved with money and finance, and it's more exciting. The women do their womanly jobs, more gentle. Their brains can handle it. Of emotional and ethical training. That's what women can do. They couldn't handle that business world. Yeah.
So before the Industrial Revolution, did women like to not teach their children these values, or did the husband help or something? How is that?
Think of more in the terms of for virtually every family. For every family, it would be, okay, we're going to teach as part of our unit to survive. We're teaching you all these skills to survive. And women have usually a bigger role in childbearing, but the idea would be that's part of the whole economic system. But now it's like separate. It's got a different world. What else? You better keep it clean. What? Before the Industrial Revolution, who cared if your house was clean? You're surviving. Now, that house isn't clean. What does that tell you about your wife? Horrible. Horrible. Failure. And you better care for your husband. Be a helpmate. They work hard. Your job is to support them. Cook for them. Have things ready. Be there when they need you. Don't complain, because that's your job. And if you want to go out and get a job, you want to get a career, go to college, whatever it might be, there's something wrong with women who did that. Was it like this before? No. I'm not saying women, there was a subservient issue there. Women did have fewer rights. That's why so many women in the colonies ran away and joined American Indian tribes. But it wasn't this. But think about how quickly people came to think this was normal. The way it's always been. Yeah. And then who's going to teach little girls? And little boys too. This is the way it's supposed to be. Dylan.
I know James Winchester wrote Chesapeake. Really good book that that's how it started back in the 1600s. How he wrote it is that they were just absolutely the right of his any sort of influence.
Yeah, he kind of wrote it. He wrote a book of his era and put it in that. I've never read Chesapeake. I've read others. He's good at storytelling. Yeah, he is. And who's going to teach little girls? Their mothers. Does that kind of reinforce it then? Well, my mom thinks it's normal, so I think it's normal. And if you don't think it's normal, what? What are you going to say? Yeah, does anybody want to come out there as weird? That's a big coercion. I mean, especially if your mom is the one telling you as a girl, and also telling the boy, yeah, you're a top. It's a big deal. And this picture from 1880 really shows it, doesn't it? It's Home Sweet Home, but clearly who's in charge? That cat.
Yes.
Yeah, he's standing, they look at him, they all eerily look like him. And I know they're supposed to, but it's almost too much. Clearly they had the same model, they just drew the same face, except for this young girl has a very adult face. And one more thing we have to add, called Republican womanhood. Republican womanhood is this. It's that it'll also be the job of women to teach their children to be good citizens. Good citizens. Same kind of thing. And so this is a radical shift for women. At the same time, it's no coincidence. If women are going to teach you to be good citizens, at the same time, what few legal and political rights women had, they lost them all in the first 50 years of the 19th century. It's no coincidence. Industrial Revolution happened and women lost legal and political rights. Almost all of them. Women by 1850, if they got married, they were by definition slaves, owned by their husband. So all of this you can see with the Industrial Revolution. Did women resist?
No.
Eventually, they will. But it's going to be very hard to do when you also have to convince women to accept, you can be equal too. No, I don't want to be equal. And lastly, what about those little urchins? Before the Industrial Revolution, children were an economic necessity. You needed little workers.
How they carry on. How they carry on the name and money and.
Yeah, but most people have money. As to, most people are very little to pass on. Children were necessary for work. And so you kind of care for them. I'm sure you know their name and stuff, but they're workers. But after the Industrial Revolution, I'm only being partially facetious about it. After the Industrial Revolution, why do you have children? What are they good for? No, I'm serious. What are they good for? What are good for kids? No, that's not quite true.
Eventually, they go.
Huh? What? Why do you have children?
Better.
Because you want them. And you might actually like them.
What?
I know. Weird, huh? No, boy, that's a big shift, isn't it? From, it's now, okay, we can plan this. And what's going to happen to the size of families? They will shrink because children are making money for it. They're not economically important, but they're taken away from that very limited paycheck. Every society that goes through industrialization, what happens? Their family size shrinks. Now you put your notes away, but I'm not done, so get them back out. And with that, we get a couple things. If you're actually going to take the time to decide to have a child and say, I want this child and I'm going to care for them, actually teach them morals and ethics, schools, they talk about public education, but they didn't become a necessity until the Industrial Revolution. Not just to make you into their little robots, but parents wanted schools for their children. A lot of it was maybe they can get a better life. And we set this amazing system up for you that in a very weird American way ends when you're 18. Other places keep going here. Nope, now you're on your own. But every place and pretty amazing. And also, if I actually like my kids, might I want to do nice things for them?
Like buy
them things. What is it? Could there just happen to be these people that are now making and selling things and want to figure out a way to get people to buy their things, aka create demand? Let's see, families with children. Now they want to do nice things. We're selling stuff, and we want people to buy our stuff. And we need to make them believe they have a good reason to buy stuff they don't necessarily need.
children in their house. Children in their house.
Where do you think the secular holiday of Christmas that we know of came from? That is Santa Claus from 1861. That's where it comes from. Christmas, as we know it as this, there was a minor little gift giving. It become a gift giving thing to be nice to your children, but at the same time, we have industrialists and business that have stopped this out. Birthdays? Why do you think? You think that was a big gift-giving thing before the Industrial Revolution? No. Is that bad, by the way? No, people like to do good things, but it's interesting how Christmas went from being a 7 or 12-day drunk to having this very creepy-looking first Santa Claus from Thomas Nast in 1861 bring us presents. It's pretty creepy.
easy, yeah.
That's not a doll.
No, it is a doll.
That's not a doll.
I mean, you're going to see this all through the Industrial Revolution. One of my favorites is, the paper companies made up this holiday called Mother's Day to sell cards. No, like my mom, and it's good to do things, but also, wow, isn't it interesting how they can get things to buy stuff? But ironically,
Get things.
did I say I'm thinking about what I'm going to say, because I'm going to get one more thing for the bell rings. You ready? But this also, ironically, the loss of power led to the women's rights movement. Just write down women's rights. We'll do this quick tomorrow, then we'll watch the video. Sound good? You have homework, and that means, Starla, you have to have this done by tomorrow. Homework, it is, I'm kidding. I know, I was just joking. Because tomorrow's your last day, right? You have to hitchhike, or you Yeah, hitchhike, North Carolina.
Land water.
Yes.
Yeah, watch out for land ride. Ooh. You do have to read chapter 9 for Tuesday. I'm going to give you a few days to do that. Have a great day, everybody. Rock you fine work. And hang by your thumbs. Woo-hoo!
What family size is shrinking, is that why our, like the US is growing older, like population?
Sure, and that's why a country like Japan really run over Germany, because their birth rate is so low.
Right. Because family size is not
Totally correct. I was like, oh yeah, I kind of remember that.
Well, yeah, that's always a problem when not only were you sick in this days, but then it was just a while ago.
Yeah.